Well, Valeska, you gonna tell us when we're live? We are live, you guys. We've been live for 8 seconds. Hello. So, first of all, Tanya, thank you for
Hello.
being.
My pleasure.
It is. So for those of you who have been to different lives that I've done before, then you know I live in a zoo, and I apologize in advance for any cat or dog or perhaps another mammal that decides to make an appearance. I'm really sorry about that because they can open my door even though I've switched my door handle a few times. Anyway, it's gonna be great. So. I want to just give a little bit of an overview of what y'all can expect from this live. So we get a lot of questions about, number one, you all know that we're doing this Land Your Virtual Dream Job Boot Camp, but we also, outside of that, or I guess maybe it's inside of that, we try to do a couple lives every week that talk about things that people ask us about. And one of them is resumes. And Tanya has an amazing record and has done a lot in the space. And so there's going to be a lot of question and answers in this that we will do our best to answer as they come up. So I'm going to let Tanya give a little overview of who you are and where you came from, why you're passionate about this, what's sort of your philosophy on resumes. And then, I'll get into Intry, and then we'll talk about the technical things, and then we'll just get to it, and we'll answer as many questions as we can during this time.
Great.
All right.
So I guess my name is Tanya Floyd. I am a professional resume writer. I work actually an associate writer for Alliance Writing Service. So we write resumes and of all kinds, from all levels, all types. And we also do LinkedIn profile writing. I'm also I'm a board member for the National Resume Writers Association. And I've been doing this since COVID. And I switched gears from marketing to writing resumes, and I love it. I love helping people get their dream job. It's exciting. It's fun when I help other people be successful. So it's my pleasure, actually.
So one of the things that so I'm Jennifer Sethre. Some of you guys know me, some of you don't. So I have a platform called Intry Careers, and we are essentially a technology platform that takes an existing resume and turns it into an applicant tracking system resume. Meaning, in short, that we found that there's bias in ATS technology. Some of it might be intentional, and a lot of it is not, right? So you can have a really beautiful resume, and that really beautiful resume may or may not make it through an applicant tracking system software. So, but before we get into the technical aspects of it, because I'm not trying to make this an Intry infomercial, Tanya, I want to ask you just a handful of questions. So, when you're talking to someone and they reach out and they're like, I just watched Talladega Nights again, so now I'm saying thank you, 8-pound sweet baby Jesus, which I cannot get out of my brain, so I'm going to apologize if I keep referencing that. But so when someone calls you and they're like, I don't know where to go, I'm stuck, because I think, we've talked before that on our last live, actually, where sometimes as individuals, we're really great about talking about everybody else, but we're not as great when we're talking about ourselves. So I'd love to learn a little bit of your process of how you kind of ask those questions and unpack it.
And that's so true. With resumes, especially, it's a struggle for us to brag about ourselves. And especially women, actually, we do a way worse job of bragging about ourselves than men do, which is funny, but it's modesty. But it's hard to speak on your achievements, and so what we do is we break it down into car stories to kind of simplify it for people. It's the challenge at hand, the action you took to resolve the issue, and the result. And that's how we break down achievements in a way that speaks to the person who's looking for you to solve their problems, which is the hiring authority. And so we usually give this this worksheet to fill out, and you kind of sit on it for a few days and let it resonate. Start thinking about accomplishments or problems you've solved for your past employers, and it kind of gets the ball rolling. And you start thinking about, oh yeah, that one time I had this integration that was successful, or this launch of this product, and you go from there. But that's one of the most challenging aspects of what I do, is trying to bring out this way of bragging about yourself that's hard for a lot of people to do. And it's really hard for me to do it. I know I feel it.
Well, I think, like there's a certain part of us that, we're raised to be humble, right? We're raised to say that it was a we thing. It wasn't a me thing. And oftentimes, like I've said this before on different events and different posts. When I first started Intry, I didn't have a resume, right? Because I'd been really lucky in my career, and a lot of it had been word of mouth. So I had like a board bio, right? I had like a summary if you're going to be on a panel or something like that, but I didn't have like a resume. And so I wrote one, and it was bad. I mean, I still have it. Actually, I'm not going to show you. It's framed over here because it was so bad. It's just a reminder to myself. And then it's really true, actually. And then I paid someone like you to write it, and really pulled out so much information about, what I did. And one of the things there were a couple things they pulled out. One, like, the first company I was running, we did, we created the first pre-lit Christmas tree. Doesn't seem like a big deal, right? I mean, it didn't, I guess, to me, but it is a big deal. And now it's, like probably $1 billion market every year. And I can say that me and my team created that. It wasn't anywhere on my resume.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like, probably something you should put on there, right? Or just different things that you did, different things that I volunteered in, I didn't have on my resume. And I think it's really hard sometimes to look at yourself objectively and say, okay, I did that, because your resume, as is like your best calling card. It's your moment to be seen. And now obviously you tie that in with LinkedIn. And so you have sort of this electronic resume, and then you have the resume that you have to submit and send into, various applicant tracking system software. So when you started, and if I ask too many questions and you're like, TMI, sister, like I can't get that clear, that is fair. But so when you created your first resume and you got your first win, what did it feel like? And what do you think made the difference for that person that you were able to help? I guess it's sort of a personal question too.
I remember, well, it's funny because the first resume I created was for myself, and it was, I do graphic design. So I created it in Adobe Illustrator, and I didn't know about applicant tracking systems. So I thought I had this beautiful resume with all these graphs and charts and things. And I wasn't getting any callbacks. I wasn't getting anybody to, I thought I didn't understand why. And that was a part of when I started writing resumes for the people. I went through different training courses, and I have a great mentor, Mary Jo King, that she's been writing for over 30 years, and she's a great mentor, and she's very successful in what she does. But it's funny that I had no idea that my beautiful resume was not being seen by hiring managers. So the first resume I wrote was I'm trying to think. It was for it was for woman who worked in insurance. She was not getting ahead. She really wanted to, she felt like she was stuck in the same position for 6 years. She hadn't gotten a promotion. She was turned down over and over again for these promotions. And she really lacked the confidence to even, I think she kind of started to hide at work and really kind of shut down. And so it took that resume for her to see her accomplishments, to see that she was very successful and very great at her job, to build that confidence, to bring that resume to another company who saw her value, and she was hired within 2 months of receiving that resume. And that was a big win, but it made me feel so good because she was really unhappy. And when she called me the day she got hired, and it's always awesome when my clients call me and share with me when they find their job, their dream job. So we still keep in touch. Actually, she's great, and she's doing well. So it feels good. It feels really good.
That's such a, when we were on the live a couple days ago, someone asked us, why are we doing what we do? Why do we, do these lives? We've obviously got other things and other responsibilities, but for me, it's the joy in helping people. And when you see someone move forward, but if you don't mind, I want to pivot a little bit to some of the technology things. And I say that because, you and I have had this conversation before, and I actually had it with someone who was looking for a job this morning. And I just want to reiterate, if people who are listening to this and you're applying to jobs and you're not getting any responses, there's a few reasons why. One, you probably need someone like Tanya. Number two, if you have done sort of the spray and pray and the one-click applies, or you have posted your job on a job board, right? And you are then using sort of customized resumes that you're creating to apply for other jobs, how they save your information, how they index your information into their database is going to turn the other resumes that you're submitting, and it's going to make you look like a bot, especially if you're doing the one-click applies. So I want to take you through, if you're doing that, how to stop it and how to kind of reverse some of the damage, right? Number one, you need to change how your name looks on the resume, right? Instead of Jennifer Sethre, I may put, my first name or my middle initial, or my initial for my name, my middle name, and then my last name. I'm changing my phone number. So I would get a Google phone number, have that Google phone number forward to my phone number. And then I would change, my email, because that's how it's indexed. And then I would change the city that I'm living in. So if I'm living in Austin, I would say, okay, I'm living in an adjacent city. Maybe I would say I'm living in Westlake, or I'm living in Bee Cave, or I'm living in, Round Rock, or whatever, so that you're still being mostly, and I say mostly, truthful, but you have to game the system because the system is already gaming you, right? And those are just some simple ways that you can get around what the technology is sort of doing to your resume. And the other thing I think that I want to address from this phone call this morning is that you have to customize your resume for almost every job that you apply for. And I think, Tanya, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you do this amazing job, I think, of getting the really important things out of people, what they do. And sometimes you need to switch the words around. Sometimes you need to wordsmith it. You're still saying the same thing, but you need to wordsmith it based on what that job description is saying. So what do you think about that? How would you address that for people?
So I agree with everything you just said. I think that with tailoring your resume, it's important to know what you're looking for, because you want a targeted resume, and to redo your resume for every job application or every job that you're interested in applying for is a lot. It's time consuming. So it's important to already have a well-targeted resume for the career you're looking to go for. So we do a lot of back-end research on that, so that you already have this keyword-rich document that hits a lot of the key qualifications for the particular role to start with. So, and then you do customize the resume based on the job post. So we do our best practices to explain that in your name, your address, and then your summary of qualifications, you should have the job, the name of the job you're applying for as the title. So that is kind of number one for us to explain. So every time, so if you're applying for a job that is project manager, but it's project management something, or whatever the title is, that's the first thing we suggest that you adapt for each application. And then you go from there. You have to kind of do some work to make sure that they are hitting the same, that you meet the qualifications in order to score high in ATS and hopefully get your resume read by a human being, a human reader. So.
That is like always the objective, right?
Right.
So again, I'm gonna speak to someone that I spoke to earlier this week that sent me two versions of their resume, right? One resume was 2 pages long, and the other one was 3 pages long. The 3 pages long resume was beautiful, right? But when I looked at it, I was like, this isn't going to get parsed, and it isn't going to be ranked very well within applicant tracking systems. So what people need to understand when you're creating a resume, don't use Canva. Okay. It's beautiful. If you want to do that, bring it to an in-person resume, but don't use that when you're going to do something electronically, right. Because it's not going to get through. They're beautiful and they're art, but you don't necessarily need your resume to be art. And I said many times before, the companies that own the majority of the applicant tracking system market have been around for a really long time. They have legacy software. And even though they try to upgrade their legacy software, they still are dealing with issues as a result of that. So, you know, when you are creating the headers for your resume, you have your name at the top, you have your email, you have your phone number at the top, then you have your profile. Or you could also call that a summary, right? You have your employment history, you have your awards, your achievements, your education, your certification, your skill set, right? What ATSs can't read is sarcasm, right? You can't read if you say something like core competencies. It doesn't know what that is. It doesn't know how to parse that. And, you know, when you try to go away from what ATSs can read, if you say something on your resume that is, you know, additional relevant experience, most ATSs don't have the proper parsing tools to understand what additional relevant experiences means and what that is. So when you're doing that, you're doing yourself a disservice. You need to stay traditional, right? Summary and or profile, your professional experience, your education, your achievements, your awards, your certification. What would you agree with that, or do you disagree? Because it's okay to disagree with me.
No, it's what you're saying is correct. I think that like building Canva. Well, like I said, my first mistake before I was a resume writer was to make a beautiful resume in Adobe Illustrator. So that, you know, it's nice. It was pretty, but nobody was getting it. It was not being read by the human hiring managers or whatever. So agreed. The best place to create a resume is in Word. And to keep it simple, because even I know there was this interview with I think CEO of Indeed, or I forget who, I think it was Indeed, I can't remember who it was, and he said the only person you're writing for is for the robot who's reading your resume. So you're to say that you are writing for the human reader that gets it eventually, but and that's a different that's why you have to have a two-prong approach to that resume. So it speaks to the human reader and the robot who's going to go through it first. So this a simple, boring resume that just in exactly what you just said. Your name, your summary of qualifications, your work, your experience, your work experience, your education, your career development, or achievements, stuff like that. That's straight across, and keep it clean and simple. Nothing fancy. No.
Well, so when we're talking about resumes, I think there are some ATSs where you can still use the Word document. Most ATSs prefer to parse a PDF, right?
Right.
So we reverse engineered hundreds of applicant tracking system software. And one of the things that I want to talk about when we're writing resumes, and Tanya, I hope, if you just give me and everybody who's watching and listening, I'm going to take a slight non sequitur, although I promise it's still related. So one of the things I want people to understand is that sometimes you're not getting responses, and it's not you, right? Sometimes there is, some bias. There's algorithmic bias that is built into some of the ATS platforms. There can be programming and design flaws in ATS systems. There can be historical data usage, which means that a lot of them are using trained algorithmic data and using the historical data, and that data can reflect past biases or non-inclusive practices. The way that the system continues to perpetuate these biases is by identifying the ideal candidates based on the profiles that reflect those that were previously hired in those organizations. And so that's one of the things that Intry does. We address the historical data uses. We address the, programming and design flaws and the algorithmic bias. And, some of them are also keyword dependent, but that's not the only thing that they're at. That, there's some bias that can be built into these, but there's also, different cultural and socioeconomic factors sometimes why resumes may unintentionally discriminate based on how different groups describe their experiences or present their backgrounds, right? So you've got variations in languages, terminology, resume structure. And so some of those may not be recognized or valued by a standardized system. And so, again, I don't want to make this an Intry infomercial, but that's really the things that we address when people use our software, right? We don't do what Tanya does, right? We're not going to pick out all of these subtle things in your history, but what we are going to be able to do is take the content and the all of the detail and the criticalness and flip it so that on the top side, right, it looks just like a resume. And underneath is the stuff that we use to really help mitigate the bias. And listen, there are other services that do something similar that what Intry does. I don't think they're as good as what we do, but that's a separate conversation. But I think, making sure that you understand how to convert it into an ATS resume on the surface is equally important, as to what, we're doing kind of underneath it. And, when I was mentioning some of those things, I could see you, nodding your head and how you address them in what you're doing. And so if you want to, talk a little bit about that, and you guys feel free to ask questions. There's just two of us on the call today. So if you see me looking down or doing something, I'm just trying to respond to comments. I swear to God, I'm not responding to emails. I understand how the optics might look. So what do you have to say about some of those things? I know I just did a big data dump on you, but
no, that's the biggest challenge that we face as resume writers, but also as the person who's trying to find work, is that ATS system that's flawed. And it's true. It's very flawed. the biases that like what you said, the word choices, they are even, they're biased that they don't even mean to be, but there's also, without checking, without them checking their algorithm, there's bias built in, just like with writing code, for software.
Mm-hmm.
There's bias built
Mm-hmm.
in, and so it's important to have people checking that. I think that that's great. Honestly, that's what we need that. But until there's a solution, we have to work around these challenges that that everybody's facing. That makes it harder for qualified candidates to be seen by hiring managers, and it's upsetting, to be honest.
It is. It is upsetting. And again, I don't want to just use this conversation as like I'm preaching, right? But it's why I do what I do. Why I do events like this, because people need to know. I'm tired of people posting things on LinkedIn and people saying, we review every resume that comes in.
Right.
You personally may not review every resume that comes in, but maybe your software does. And I think,
Right.
I think hiring managers and recruiters have incredibly hard jobs. They're the first to go when there's a reduction in force. They're asked to do more with less. They're using legacy technology that doesn't work the way that it needs to. And then they have people going, hey, you're not bringing me the right candidates. Hey, how come, we have 1,000 people and we aren't finding the right ones? And it's like, well, because sometimes your technology is working against you and it's not working for you. And so, that's why we're telling you ways right now to game the system. If you have resumes that are posted on job boards, take them down. Immediately take them down. Sometimes they purge their data every 6 months. Sometimes they don't. I can tell you there's hundreds of ATSs and other software that they don't purge their data because they want to keep it, because they think that there's value in that data.
Right.
But that value maybe to them could be hurting you and can be hurting their organization by not allowing the right people into their organization. So generally what we love to do in these lives is we like to, give information, and then we like to have a Q&A session. Does anybody have any questions before we can, trust me, I can talk about building resumes all day long. And you guys are going to be like, we have things to do now, sister. So let's wrap this up. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to post them.
I would like to hear more about. I don't advise my clients to take down their posts if they had them on. So I would like to learn a little bit about that. Actually, will you tell me? Well, I mean, I guess I can understand why, but I know they're keeping.
Yeah. No. Okay. So we spent a lot of time researching this, and I don't talk about it in a lot of granular detail because I don't want anyone to reach out and send me, a cease and desist letter, right? Mm-hmm. But what happens is, so I'm going to use myself as an example, right? I could be defined as a Swiss Army knife because there's a lot of things that I've done in my career, right? I've done. Okay. So, I'm Vanish. I hope that I don't kill your name here, and I'm apologizing for it. But your question was, and Tanya, I'm going to go back to your question. I promise I'm not going to forget. So I'm starting with a silly one. So Calibri or Times New Roman, either one is great. Don't use anything fancy because most of them can't read it. And resumes they're filtered and they're scored. And oftentimes there are knockout questions that they will put in there, right? So up until recently, these knockout questions had gone away, like the zip code that you live in, what university did you go to, the city that you are living in. Sometimes if your name doesn't sound Caucasian enough, it can kick it out if it's not a reflection of the people that have been in that company. And those are coming more and more into play now because people are moving away from having people being remote workers. That's a real thing. And so, if there's a job that you are applying to that you're really qualified for, and maybe it's, an hour away from where you live, you could maybe just change your zip code so that it's closer to that job. Now, is that an ethical and moral thing to do? I think if you're trying to get a job and you're willing to make that drive, you need to do what you need to do to get in front of the hiring manager. And then, collectively, you guys can make the decision. Because if you're not doing that, then you're having a bot, as you were saying, maybe the CEO from Indeed was referencing that, right? So you have to be your own best advocate. End of story. Okay, so Andrew, given that these hiring managers are drowning in work and have lousy tools, how do you think one should balance reaching out for the timeline updates? Tanya, you probably have some thoughts on that. I'll give you my first high level one is like, I recently learned how to create Boolean strings to find people's email addresses, right? And so, I mean, hey, you got to do what you got to do. This is sort of guerrilla warfare.
Right.
And sending them an email and saying, hey, I know you're swamped. I just wanted to, here's my resume. Wanted to make sure it got through your ATS system. Super interested in the job, blah, blah, blah. Right. Keep it simple, keep it bullet points, and, don't be a stalker. Right. So a week after you submitted it, I would say is a fair chance to follow up. What do you think, Tanya?
Absolutely. We encourage that to be aggressive, get out there, definitely follow up. And when if you send a cover letter, which most people who, they don't always require, the people who do require resumes cover letters, really, really want to see those. They want to see that's the first chance to see your written communication skills. So, but anyway, that would be at the end of that paragraph, at the end of the statement, I'm sorry, but your cover letter, you say, I'll be following up if I don't hear from you first, kind of thing. And that's kind of the setup to be like, you're going to hear from me. And you should.
You are going to hear from me.
Yeah. So I agree. I agree with all of that. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Let me see if these are better glasses. Not so much. Both of us, by the way, lost our glasses right before the event. So just.
Yep. They're driving me crazy.
I know. It's really terrible. Okay. So how do you suggest that we detail relevant experience if it is vital to the opportunity so that it is ATS friendly? Okay. Maybe I'm not understanding that question exactly. How do you suggest we detail relevant experience if it is vital to the opportunity so that it is ATS friendly? First of all, you want to mirror their words. You want to mirror the words in the job description and include that in your resume. As long as, right, Tanya? As long as it doesn't totally distort your experience.
Yeah, you don't want to do it verbatim. You definitely, because the whole goal is to have it be seen by the hiring authority, the hiring manager, a human reader. So you definitely want to rephrase it. But you want to be speaking to all of the requirements in the job post. So you would want to detail the relevant experience that you have that is related to the job post. Verbatim might be okay for ATS, but eventually a human reader is going to read it and see that copy and paste is.
I think there's two things though, right? Yeah. A, you want to get through the ATS, but B, when you are meeting that person, like I always suggest you have two resumes, right? Although I think ours are sufficient and pretty to bring, but that you want to make sure that you get through the bots first, because you've got 300, 500, 1,000 people applying to, it seems like almost every job posting. The keywords are important, and like I've seen something where people are applying for marketing jobs and they're saying the strategies of marketing. I'm like, I have never, ever heard anybody tell me, so please tell me, what are the strategies of marketing? I'm sorry, what is that? But I would say that, if you see that repeatedly in the job description, you might want to put that as a skill, the strategies of marketing, even though it sounds ridiculous because that's what they're calling it. And you may not get ranked and filtered as high if you don't. And sorry, Tanya, I stepped over you. I'll be quiet now.
No, you're right. No, absolutely. So there might be some, but also that's kind of why you want a targeted resume to begin with, is so that your experience, if they require SaaS, for instance, or some technology, Adobe, whatever it is, if you don't have that skill set, well, I would suggest Googling it, watching a YouTube tutorial so you can speak on it, and then just, but I still would say, if you make sure that you meet the requirements of the job. But if there's those weird terms that they use, throw it in there. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the goal is to get through the hurdle, the first hurdle. And then you can, when you get the interview, then you speak to your experience. But you need to, the goal is to get the interview. So that's our goal, always. So.
Always. Okay. So next one was, how important is your summary? So important. So important.
Yeah, I can speak on that real quick. The hiring manager who gets your resume eventually when it gets through ATS, will give you, I think they say 7 to 12 seconds of that's how long they'll get. Yep. They're not reading your resume. They're skimming it. They're scanning it. Sorry, scamming it. They're scanning it. Maybe that's it. But they're so you need to be able to catch the reader's attention immediately, so they know that you're qualified for the position, and you go into that because there's the qualified and not qualified pile, right? And you want to be able to, and within 7 to 12 seconds, get into that qualified pile. So that summary is extremely important. It should be quick, a few sentences, in two different, probably break it down into 2 different paragraphs. We can go into detail about that another time, but you really want to speak to your accomplishments and to your qualifications for that role, so that they know that they're in the right place and that you're the person for the job. So they're not going to read your entire resume. They're going to scan it. Why am I saying scam? Freudian slip. I don't know what that is.
I feel like there's something underlying that we may need to unpack, but we'll circle back to that later.
Yeah.
These are all great questions, y'all. Thank you so much. But I want to circle back to Tanya. You had asked about keeping your resume posted online, right?
Right.
Posted on a job board. So here's sort of what happens. So again, like Swiss Army knife, right? A lot of different things that I could do, right? And if you post a resume that's like, hey, I'm Jennifer Sethre, I'm the CEO, right? But, I've also been a chief product officer. I've also been a chief marketing officer. I've also been a president. I've also been a VP. And a VP at $1 billion company is a little bit different than Andrew. Oh my God. Okay. Is different than, working at a company where there's 100 billion versus, 50 million or 25 million, right? So the scope of work and responsibility is a little bit different. So when you post your core resume up, and you're hoping that, your keywords and everything in the bots are going to attract, the job postings to you, and you're going to get these matches, right? Then let's just say you submit another resume. You don't post it, but you submit another resume. They're still tracking the information that's you. So they're tracking your name, they're tracking your email address, they're tracking your phone number, they're tracking the city that you live in. And then you're applying to these different jobs that don't reflect your resume that's posted, right? So they think like you are also a bot that's sort of spamming job roles. I don't think it was that intention that would happen, but that is sort of what's happening. And then you marry that with the one-click apply or the easy apply. And then all of a sudden you're a bot and you are not to be trusted.
I know I've been told not to do the easy applies, just like the LinkedIn easy apply, because they copy and paste, some version of your profile into and make it into a resume for the hiring manager or something. But also I find that very interesting.
It's actually honestly. And when I, so one of our users at Intry sort of discovered this, and And, we were like, oh my God, this person is really creating a lot of resumes. This is sort of bananas. What is happening? And so, we actually reached out and we're like, hey, can you take us through, what's happening? And so then we tried to sort of replicate what was happening, and how do you, like, why was it happening, right? Was it like, is it just an HR person? Is it a recruiter thing, or is it a technology thing? And after sort of peeling back the onion, we realized that it was a technology issue. So we helped them redo the resume, and that's how we identified different ways that information was being indexed. And so when you reached out and said, hey, I'd like this resume to be taken down, most people reply and they say, no problem, we'll take this resume down. But what happens is that data isn't purged from their data lakes, right? So all the data goes into what's called a data lake. And all of those data lakes contain all of your information. And so then when you post, like, for example, I had a friend who was applying at a really, really big recruiting agency whose name I am not going to say, but they were rejected. And when they called the recruiter and said, hey, I am really qualified for this job, here's my resume, their old resume from 10 years was still in their database. And so when they queried that person's name, they pulled up that person's resume, and they're like, but you're not qualified. You don't have this, 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 and this. So their current resume was kicked out. So, and some firms are really great about purging, their data every 6 months, or at least, storing it differently so that it's not marked as current candidates, right? But not everybody does that. And so you have to be your own advocate to take that information down or ask for it to be taken down. And you'll know for sure when it starts happening if you've posted a resume and then you've sent other resumes out that are slightly different, right? For a slightly different role, maybe with same experience. And you start getting these weird matches, right? Like, you're a president and then you're getting a match for a project manager. Or, in my case, I ran a healthcare revenue cycle management technology company, and I was getting matches to be the CEO of a hospital or whatever. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And so we just started unpacking it. And then when we would change people's information on how they appeared on the resume, miraculously, they started getting interviews and callbacks, right? So that's what I know. People can come after me, they control me. That's been our experience, and that's how we fixed it. So, bring it on.
So interesting. Good to know. Thank you for that. Actually, I hadn't heard of that as an issue before, but it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And now I'm thinking to myself, if there's ever been an issue with that, luckily well, I should knock on wood. All of our clients are getting interviews and getting placed. So, but I'm thinking about that now. I want to make sure that we're covering that as well.
Well, yeah, but listen, that's just, you and I have talked. Getting a job is a multi-pronged approach, right? Mm-hmm. It's a 360. It's creating your unique value proposition. It is creating a great resume, making sure you have an ATS resume, making sure that your LinkedIn is optimized. And it's understanding how to network, how to message people, how to have a cadence of those messages, right? How do you find the right recruiter? How do you find the right hiring manager? And that brings me to, we haven't really talked about this thing that you and I are doing at the end of September, which is a 2-day virtual boot camp called Landing Your Dream Job. It's a 2-day, it's not free. So sorry for that. It's, it's not free, but it's a 2-day intensive course, and you walk away with all these tangible assets so that you are fully locked and loaded when you are looking for a job. And we'll post that in the comments down below. But again, I don't want to make this like just an advertorial for that. But okay, so we had another question. Is this a sufficient read for a hiring manager Okay, so you're getting very granular in us. Okay, if you want granular feedback, I'm just saying, like, we're both pretty direct people. Okay, a results-driven computer science graduate with 2+ years of experience in products and software development. Tanya, I'm going to defer to you first.
Okay, so computer science graduate, bachelor's, master's, what's the degree? It says that's a computer science graduate with 2+ years of experience. Okay, in product and software development. Product and software development. You are hitting the right keywords for the software, but you really, for me, you want to be able to speak on what results, but also I would like to know what degree it is. That should be in the first sentence if that's a requirement for the job, which I assume it is. But passionate about developing innovative solutions So to drive success, I would like to hear about how you're driving success, how you're I think if I look back here, what was the first part? Results driven results. So it's a good start. It needs to be a little more detailed. I would have your expertise at the bottom, but those are big requirements. I think you need to speak on how well, not just what you do, but how well you do it, and that's a really important part of the summary that you need to focus on.
Does that answer questions? I mean, I was just going to say ditto to what you said.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to speak to you more about it if you'd like after this. But yeah, I'd be happy to give you some other pointers if you're interested. But yeah, I mean, you're on the right track, but you definitely need to be speaking to how well you do your job, not just what you do, because everybody, right. Any product manager. It's any person that's applying for this job is going to say the same thing. So what makes you different? What sets you apart from your competition? Because everybody's going to have the same experience you do. You need to stand out. So that would be something that I'd be wanting to focus on, is how you stand out to the other hundreds of people who are applying for the same job.
Well, and honestly, what you said earlier, you have 7 to 10 seconds to make an impression. If you look at that summary, does that impress you? Because if you're not impressed with your summary, then no one else is going to be, right? And I think you want to make it stand out, and you don't want it to be, so generic. Would be my advice.
Yep, you definitely, yes, correct. But again, I'm happy to talk to you after. But yes, I think that a software engineer is going to need some more results to speak of, so that they know that you're going to be able to solve their problems. That's what they're looking for. That's what hiring managers are looking for, is for you to solve their problems. So I would speak on that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've only got 12 minutes left. It feels like we just started. So
time flies when you're having fun, it's
it really does. So, and I love that, we're both coming from things from a slightly different, perspective, but where we meet in the middle is where it's really, really important. And I think Tanya has such a really interesting view on writing resumes, because before this, you were a marketing guru, a digital marketing guru, and you made a career pivot because this was something that really mattered to you. So I think, the advice you're giving is not just from someone who's writing resumes, but you're also, you've been in the market, and you've been an executive, and you've been in marketing, and you've gotten granular. So messaging and wording really matters, and helping that person create their brand, I am promoting Tanya, but I'm also, we want to really help you guys, but being able to turn yourself into a brand is something that you and I have talked about before. And And Jean O'Reilly, who's not on this one, but she, coined, and she's writing a book, by the way, called, oh my gosh, I can't tell you the title. I almost just, though she would have probably not been very happy with me. But she created this, the unique value proposition. And that's really about creating who you are as a brand and how you stand out from, the other people that are applying for the same job. And I feel like that's something you do well, Tanya, but like what you are able to articulate in that space.
I do think it's hard for me to not think as a marketing person. I've been doing for 20 years prior to writing resumes. So I feel, and I still do it with the resume. It's your marketing piece. And same thing with your LinkedIn web. This is your marketing. You're marketing yourself. And so you're selling yourself. But that branding is huge. It's so important to be able to have a personal brand. And it sounds silly, but it's everything when it comes to setting yourself apart from other people. And it's a big deal. I do think I used to even say like everything below the fold, which is like a marketing term. I still do. I have it in my brain. It'll always be there, but I do think like a marketer. And I feel that that's what we're doing in a way is marketing people and getting people seen. And it's a great thing. It's a great feeling to be able to help people do this, but it's a, like she said, multi-pronged approach. There's a lot of, and it's a full-time job looking for a job. So it's tough out there, but with the right marketing materials and the right team approach, we can get you there for sure.
And the right strategy. I mean, it's like, listen, y'all, like we have a strategy for everything else in our life, right? We have a strategy for where we want to be in 5 years. We have financial plans, we have education plans, we have, plans for the weekend. We have all sorts of plans and strategies, and your job search should not be any different. And it's changed from 3 years ago to even today, right? You have to have a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. Spray and pray is not a strategy. It's a multi-pronged approach from your resume to your brand, to your LinkedIn banner, to optimizing your LinkedIn, to understanding technology, how it can work for you, how it can work against you, understanding what is going to set you apart. How do you network with recruiters? What's the right thing to say? What's the wrong thing to say? How you interface with hiring managers, right thing to say, wrong thing to say, and really, taking care of your mental health when you're looking for a job, because it's hard.
It hurts just hearing you say all that. I'm isn't it? That's so much that you have to be, to manage, including your mental health. I know that a lot of times that when my clients come to me or come to us, they're stuck. They've been trying for a while. They're in transition. Or they haven't worked in a while because they were helping their family. They were taking care of their children or their parents. I've been there. So it's, and getting back out there is really, it's tough. And I have, my heart goes out to those people. I want to, do pro bono sometimes for, I just have all this, I feel for people who are struggling, and that does take a toll on you mentally. And it's then if you ever have like a couple of bad experiences in a row, then you get like shell shock or then you feel like, oh, I'm what am I doing wrong? And you need support. And I do love that this boot camp is it covers all of these things. So you have all of these different talented people that are all specialized in each part of their of the career, process, or sorry, I said career process, but of landing your dream job. And it's really nice to have that support of 12 different people all there to help you get the job that you're looking for. It's awesome.
Yeah. And it's it's a really detailed approach. I mean, again, it's not theoretical, like we didn't do this live, event just to talk about theory. We wanted you to come away with things that were tangible, where you can look at your resume and go, okay, oh, like, huzzah, I didn't know that, right? Some of the things we maybe, shared today are maybe like, ooh, that's not so great. I didn't know that. But the great news is now now what you should do and what you can do and what to avoid. And to be thoughtful and to be, methodical about everything that you're doing. So let us know if you guys have any questions before we are about to sign off. This has been really great. And Tanya, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. It means a lot.
It's my passion. So I'm of course, and I'm a big fan of what we're doing here. So yes, absolutely.
All right. So if anyone doesn't, we'll give a little bit while, a little longer for if there's any questions. Otherwise, I think we may hop off. You guys, you probably know we are in Austin, and this is what, like, this second day that it hasn't been like 110 degrees. Yes. You could actually go outside and like have lunch, which would be so lovely.
Yes, absolutely. I was just looking outside. It's it is humid though, but it's been but I love it. It's not under 100 degrees, so we're happy.
Huzzah.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, everybody. So I'm just going to double quick that I didn't ignore anybody. But really appreciate all of you guys who have shown up. And if you've got any questions, obviously you can reach out to any of us directly. We're happy to answer any questions that any of y'all have, and just really appreciate you you taking the time. It means a lot. So with that, you guys, happy hunting. Happy job hunting, right? Know that you're not alone. It may take a little longer than it has normally, but you're going to get there. It just be methodical, have a plan, and work the plan.
Agreed.
All right. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.